All right, the TV gods have given us a bit of a reprieve. We did lose Congressman Jeb Hensling, but Congressman Brad Sherman is nice enough to stick around to help us out. So, Brad, let me pick this up. Let me raise another point with you. We are the world's reserve currency by law and tradition. I mean, that's been going on since the Bretton Woods arrangement. It's actually been going on for most of the last 100+ years. Don't you feel obligated as a House member to keep us as the world's reserve currency? And therefore, aren't you horrified at this dollar depreciation scenario?
I don't have an obligation to the citizens of Argentina or Paraguay to keep the U.S. economy run for their benefit. But the U.S. does obtain a real benefit from having the world's reserve currency. It's a reason why our dollar went artificially up during the great plummeting of late 2008 as people fled to the power of the U.S. dollar. So there is some advantage to us, but not such an advantage that we would say, let's have higher interest rates, let's have 15% unemployment, let's have a double-dip recession just to make sure that Paraguayan holdings of U.S. dollars don't lose value.
Well, what about all the holdings? What about Chinese? What about Japan? What about Germany? What about Britain? In other words, isn't there some value in economic terms to having a reliable money? That usually distinguishes the great countries from the poor countries. What's wrong with that? It isn't just Paraguay. It's Germany, England, France, it's China, it's Japan, it's India, it's Brazil. Do you want the United States to be a second-rate country with a second-rate currency?
Obviously not. The thing is, though, the purchasing power of the dollar is defined by inflation. And while we may have sown some seeds for inflation in the future, right now, if anything, there's a worry of deflation. We've had less inflation over the last 3 years than at any time in my adult lifetime. So the purchasing power of the dollar is very strong. You can buy an awful lot for it. Now, internationally, our currency has dropped compared to the euro. The euro went artificially down with the great crisis in Greece and other countries, and so naturally it came back up again. But I don't think that we can have high interest rates in the United States and a double-dip recession just to affect the value of the currency holdings of all those countries that you mentioned.
I don't want high interest rates. See, I would argue that my proposal for a steady dollar, and by the way, I would relink it to gold. I would go back to the old Bretton Woods arrangement, which I think served this country and the rest of the world. Brad, I would say to you, a weak dollar will ultimately lead to the high interest rates and high inflation you're talking about. And consumers will bear that burden right away as these commodity imports come in. You know, your shoppers in Walmart and Dollar General, they're going to feel the inflation first. It's a big tax hike. It's not what you want, Brad.
Long term, we can't keep importing far more than we export. Every year we borrow $500 billion from the world that's on top of the $500 billion we borrowed the year before. Eventually that will either decline slowly or it will crash with a thud that makes 2008 seem like a little economic blip. We have got to start exporting as much as we import. And that means that it'll be a bit better for our workers, arguably a bit worse for our consumers. But there's no way that we can live in this consumer paradise forever. The consumer paradise of borrowing $500 billion on the credit card, spending more than we make, and doing that year after year. God, it feels good when you do it, but you know it can't last forever.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. We need to talk some more about trade policy. I agree with you about the deficits, but we need to promote exports the better way, maybe by cutting regulations and lower taxes. Brad Sherman, California, you're awful nice to help us, as you have down through the years. I appreciate it. If I don't see you, all the best in your election opportunities. Up next on Kudlow.
I'll count that as an endorsement.
Oh, all right. Up next on